Hey everyone, how's it going? Dustin here with Jagged Brush Studios. We have ourselves an Obi-Wan Kenobi to paint. Hope y'all are as excited to see this as I am. Just finishing up just a couple last minute things before I get started painting this. So, first off I need to get some water, and give me just a moment. Alright. So, I've got to get a reference photo pulled up for him. And see what he looks like color-wise. So that we can try to do him as movie accurate as possible. So... Clone Wars, Obi-Wan. Box art, I guess you could call it. Just checking a couple things here. Is he wearing Stormtrooper boots? He sure is, huh? Okay, okay. We can do this. Let's see. So, I think we'll be using some skeleton bone, of course some Spaceship Exterior in white, trying to see if I can get a better shot of him painted. Some Spaceship Exterior in white, some blacks for his clothing, and yeah, we'll go from there. So, first thing I like to do is I like to start with getting my brushes ready. So we're going to do a lot of this painting with one of my new brushes here. I've got some new Army Painter brushes that I got in. I'm really excited to get these to the table here. Getting this one just all cleaned up real quick. I cleaned it last night, and getting the bristles straightened back out again. So, alright. First thing I like to do is I like to just go right into our flesh tone, which is going to be a base of Army Painter Tan Flesh. So I've got some on my wet palette already. Just need to bring it back to life with some water. I'm not sure why my wet palette cam is so far zoomed out. Let's go ahead and fix that real quick. Sorry about that. I swear I have to fix it every single time that I stream. I'm not sure what's going on with that, but there we go. Hopefully that fixes it. It's really it's some setting in between my streaming software and my camera that doesn't like each other, so we're gonna actually, he's not glued together at all, so it's real easy for us to take him apart to work on things. We're gonna take his arm off so that we can focus on his face right here. We'll be able to do a majority of the work with this Army Painter Regiment brush. I really like it. I've had one before. I wore the tar out of it, so I've got this one here. Let me see if I can even find my old one. And this is my old one that I have just beat to all hell and back. So, alright. Not too concerned about if we get our skin tones over into some other colors. That's normal. It's gonna happen. Don't worry about it, because we'll cover it back up later. So don't forget to get some onto the ears. It's an easy spot to forget. And then we'll come back and we'll touch that up. So we're gonna let that dry a little bit. It will take another coat, but we'll come back to that in a minute. All right, we're gonna go into our blacks now. We're gonna pick up some of our Necromancer Cloak that we've been using for, if you watch my videos, that's my new black replacement. So Necromancer Cloak. And we're gonna paint his hands. Well, his gloves with this, so he's essentially wearing almost clone armor. Or parts of clone armor. I don't know, I'm not as up to date on the Clone Wars lore as some other people are. But, you know, I'm sure someone out there will tell me in the comments. If you want to, feel free. I have a bad habit of not putting my light high enough, so I end up slamming my head into it over and over again. That's that wonderful sound you probably just heard. I do apologize for that. Alright, so that. And then he's got another arm. Don't forget to get his other arm. My Obi-Wan that I'm painting here has a bad case of saber droop, so we'll get that taken care of a little bit later. All we'll do is we'll get it a little bit warm and get it bent back into shape. You can, if you did it before you primed it, I didn't think about it, you can just put it in some near boiling water, shape it to how you want it, drop it in ice water, it sets real fast, so not a big deal. What I'll do is I'll real quick hit it with my wife's heat gun, probably, and then get it set back after it's all painted. So, all right, so that's done. And then we need to get his pants. To be honest, this guy doesn't look too super difficult to paint, so we should be able to rock him out pretty quick to a quality that is fairly decent, that I think I'll be happy with. So you can spend as much time or as little time as you want on these miniatures, but for me, tabletop quality is just fine. One tip: if you leave them apart, you can take them apart to paint them. I said tabletop quality, sorry, let me go back and correct that. A little bit higher than tabletop quality is fine for me. So, if you can leave them apart, I would suggest, or if you can leave them without gluing them, I would suggest doing so. It makes it a bit easier. So, I haven't forgot about the giveaway I mentioned in my other video. We'll give you the password to that a little bit later tonight. I want to give some people the opportunity to join us. So we'll probably give the password to that out right around 11 o'clock if we're still painting then, if not a little bit earlier. 11 p.m. Eastern, so about 1 hour from now. A little bit more. Hang around till then. If not, come back and watch the video. So if you're watching now, you've got a head start of when I'm going to do it in 1 hour from now. So we're just painting some pants here into black with our Necromancer Cloak color. If you haven't and you are you like what we do here, I would ask that you like and subscribe to our channel. Well, I don't know why I say R. It's just a habit. Like and subscribe to my channel. New content goes up weekly, at least weekly, if not more. I've got a poll running on my Facebook page about what nights would be best for you all for streaming. Because I want to take into account what nights you're available. So feel free to let me know over there, and I will try to accommodate accordingly. I'm sure I can't accommodate everybody's schedules, but I will I will definitely try to get whoever is available the most. So, alright. Back into our flesh tone. And our second coat on the skin here. I do go up into the hairline just a little bit intentionally. As well as under a couple areas, that way when I paint the hairline and stuff in, it doesn't get missed and you don't have some weird white or gray spots that are left over. So, that is not an accident, that is intentional. Now what was an accident is I didn't paint his little tunic under his tunic here. Nor did I get up under the arms here. Try to avoid getting as much black or as little black as possible onto the Stormtrooper armor parts or the clone armor parts, because we're gonna have to paint those white, and painting white over black is a nightmare I don't wish upon anybody. Not even my worst enemies do I wish them on. I don't have many enemies, but I wouldn't wish them on them if I did. And sorry I was a little absent this week on streaming. I think I did one Monday. I intended on doing one Tuesday, but I had a long, exhausting day at work. Was feeling just a little bit wore out. Needed to take a break, so that's what I did. Alright, just checking some colors here. Checking on a couple things real quick. Somebody told me my stream quit. Checking something real quick. Bear with me a moment. It looks like I'm live on what I'm watching. Well, hopefully you're watching. I'm not sure. We shall see. Alright. Got a couple more areas that need to have some black in them. Right down in between these elbows here. Let me get my live video pulled up so I can see what I'm doing. Watching the YouTube version of what I'm doing throws me off because it's delayed. So I've got to watch the live version on my streaming software. He's got all these little bits in his elbow that need to be black, and then the rest will grab out with the stream, or with a wash. So this one's not as bad, but we'll get down underneath this arm right here. the tinier parts, most of that will get covered up by a wash when we put it on. So, double check to make sure we didn't miss anything. The only piece we did miss is around his neck, and I'm going to take his head off to do that part. Again, I don't glue anything together if I don't have to until the very end. You do have to be careful doing that, because if you overshoot with your super glue, sometimes it'll fog your paint. But be sparing with your super glue. More glue does not equal more stick. It's the best tip that I can give you on super glue use. There we go. Like I said, this guy's going to be pretty quick. I'm going to try to get this saber twisted out to where it should be. Maybe. Alright. What we're going to do real fast is we're going to put some new Spaceship Exterior paint down on our palette. Right here. And we'll start by, we're going to paint our saber that color. It makes it really vibrant when we paint our blue over top of it. So first things first is to paint the Saber Blade Spaceship Exterior. Seems I missed a little bit of primer in one spot. So, whole Saber Blade Spaceship Exterior. We'll set that off to the side to let it sit. And then we're going to go into our Spaceship Exterior for all of our, I think we'll do Spaceship Exterior. Let me look at something. You know what? I've got this new one, Stone Golem. It's a little bit darker of a gray, just a touch. We're going to start with that. I'm going to grab myself a Runaway BB, stainless steel ball bearing, or a stainless steel mixing ball. We will pop that into our paint bottle here. I want to get some really good white gradients on here. So we'll start with a little bit darker gray than what I've used to do in my Stormtroopers, and that way we can kind of work up to our Spaceship Exterior. And I'm going to let that sit for a minute, so what I'm really going to do is grab some of the skeleton bone. I think that's going to be a perfect color for his tunic once we give it a brown wash. Or his, I think it's his tunic that is flowing over him. So, Army Painter Skeleton Bone. Make sure you thin your paints out. I do it on my palette again. I tend to work with my paints at about the consistency where you can draw them thin, but they're not watery. This will take a couple coats, especially if you got black over on any of it. It's okay. Just take your time. Thin coats are better than thick coats. Thick coats obscure detail, they look chunky, you see your paint marks, and brush strokes are never fun, so brush strokes never look pretty on a miniature. So, paint all of his little tunic this color. I like these Army Painter brushes for me because the handles are a little bit chunkier. They're triangle shaped, they don't roll away off my table, and they're easier for me to hold while I'm painting than little round brushes. I find that I get much less arm fatigue when I'm using them. Make sure you get up under the little cloak bits, under the edge of it. You don't want to forget that. It's easy to forget. I have done it. I have painted an entire miniature and gone back and been like, oh, darn it. I forgot to get underneath this cloak, so. Don't forget his back piece. He does have one on the back. Bunch of new basing materials on the way too. I'm really excited about that. I'll be reviewing some of those on stream and using them on some of my minis, so keep an eye out for that coming up soon as I get them in. This is my first stream using my new brushes. I did use my regiment brush last night and loved it. Again, I've had one before, I mentioned earlier in the stream. But I could probably paint this entire miniature with just this regiment brush. It's that versatile. And I'll do a video on some brush care here soon to show you how I wash and clean my brushes. It's nothing you can't find elsewhere, but if you can get one-stop shopping on my channel, great. So, the last thing we need to do is come up here and paint underneath him. Be careful when working like this. If you think you'd be more comfortable with taking them apart, do that. This dry before we work it too much more. I'm going to take a quick moment and get a little bit of water. I have not started on his base yet either, so it's going to be Geonosis themed, so we'll get that set out just so I'm thinking about it. Alright, what color is his hair? Perfect. Lighter brown. So what color brown we'll probably use for our base is going to be, it's going to look real dark, I know. It's going to be this oak brown color. I promise it's not going to be this dark when we're all done. We will come up to another color, so don't worry about that. Whoops. Shaking it so hard I hit Obi-Wan. Did it again. I'm going to move him. Alright. But what this will allow us to do is to highlight up to another color. So, I'm just having a rough go of it and throwing stuff all over the place. So that's fun. Alright, oak brown. We're also going to use this for his belt, leather belt, when we get to it. But for now, we're just going to use this on his hair and facial hair. Get back on stream here.
I'm screaming at Leon because he's so thick. His facial awareness is that of a brick. The camera keeps jerking, it's making me sick. So hammer the buttons and wiggle the sticks. What's with these controls? Are they taking the mick? No, hammer the buttons and wiggle the sticks. Just give me some options, a tactic to pick. No, hammer the buttons and wiggle the sticks. These damn
Paint his hair.
happen too bloody quick. I'm tired of shaking the analog stick. If the camera keeps jerking, I'm gonna be sick. So hammer the buttons and wiggle the sticks. Hammer the buttons and wiggle the sticks.
Yep, that song just happened. I'm gonna have to fire up my old trusty hot glue gun because when I hit him with the paint, he came loose a little bit from his base. So we'll be ginger with him until we can get it warmed up enough to get him back on there. Alright, get his beard on. You found the stream. I don't know how you didn't find it before. It's the link that's on my channel. Trying to decide, do I take him off? Yeah, I should have, because I just mucked something up, but that's okay, we'll fix it later. Alright. He's not bad. I'm not the biggest fan of his pose. I think they could have done something a little bit better than, I don't know. I like some of the pose. I don't like the lightsaber position. I'm just taking a look at something real quick. I missed some of his hair. I know you're watching, Dan, and you've seen it, but for those people that are watching this video later or watching now that haven't seen it, I have a video up on, I'm doing a giveaway. If you'd like to see how to enter that giveaway, go watch that video. We'll be giving out the password for part of that giveaway here in about 45 minutes. So I saw you saying that and another thing when he saying that it's so nice of him to tell us where the pointy end is. So, back to our skeleton bone for the cloak here that I'm working on. Or the tunic, or whatever it is. I'm not sure. I just paint for y'all, I'm not a lexicon. This will probably take a third coat to get a good, even coverage. you're watching this video and you haven't, I'd love for you to hit that subscribe button, and then if you hit like on the video, it helps me know what kind of things you're looking for. I try to keep in touch with my audience and figure out what they're wanting. Here's where we're at so far. Alright, we're going to start working on a couple other things real quick. So, we're going to shake the tar out of this stone golem paint. I think that will make a nice shaded white color. I haven't used it yet, so it needs a lot of TLC as far as the shaking department goes. Shake, shake, shake. Yeah, I mentioned that in the other video that I posted, but yeah, if you guys hit the bell, it'll shoot you a nice little ding when I go live. Still shaking. Still shaking. Again, new Army Painter bottles that haven't been used yet take a moment. Of shaking before they're ready to go. Alright, we'll see how that looks. It's a little bit darker than that Spaceship Exterior, so that's good. You might not be able to see it on the stream, but Spaceship Exterior is here, and Stone Golem is here. So, thin that down real well, and go over all of your Stormtrooper armor with it. Or Clone Trooper armor, sorry, for the purists. It is likely that it will take a couple coats to cover because it is a white-ish color. I do. You want to come shake my paint bottles for me? No, it's on my it is on my list to purchase an electric paint shaker. Nail polish shakers work great. From what I understand, I've not used one. Or you could redneck one up on a jigsaw. I've seen that too. I just think the jigsaw would be loud. Just putting some stone golem paint onto his armor pieces. That's going to be our shadow gray color, is stone golem, but we're basing the whole thing in that color so that we can work up to some of the other ones. The jigsaw would be fun. I've seen people do it with sawzalls, I've seen people do it with jigsaws, I've seen people try it with drills, but I don't know what spinning in a circle would do. It would act more like a centrifuge in my mind. Another little shout out for me. I did an interview with a podcast for Power to the Meeple, Meeple, at Gen Con, and so you can find that over on their website. I don't have the website. I'll try to find it and put a link in the description to the podcast. But I did an interview with them, and it was a lot of fun. Well, they interviewed me, I should say. If you're more comfortable, instead of turning your mini upside down, you can take his arm off if you haven't glued it on. His isn't glued on for me, but I don't mind painting with it upside down. Doesn't bother me. Night, Dan. Have a good night. Get some rest. Still painting the stone golem on, and then once we get a first base coat of this down, we will go back to our skeleton bone, and we will put a coat of that on. So this stone golem color does have a slight tan tint to it, which actually I think it'll look great as the base. Very slight brown. Nothing too drastic. I didn't notice that in the bottle, but I think it'll still work well. You could just go with pure Spaceship Exterior if you want as your base. You're not going to get as many color variations though. And on a sculpt like Obi-Wan, that's a good sculpt, but it's kind of simple. Having the ability to put some of those color variations on there is what's going to help your mini to look a little different than everybody else's. So, just get a base coat of paint on him right now. I'm not sure how I managed to miss his entire hand. Like I was just painting up there. Not sure what happened. Alright, don't forget a Saber Arm. It's easy to do that because it's not attached. I've done that before too, where I'm like, yay, I'm done with it, and then come back later and realize I missed an entire piece because it's not attached. I know this is real hard to see because it's real far zoomed out, but this small piece I'm trying to keep stabilized on my bench. So, alright, let that dry. God bless it. I went up into my black, so we're gonna let that dry, then we'll come back. So, rinse my brush. Go back into my skeleton bone color, and we're going to do another coat. This will probably be the last one for most of it. We may have a couple areas we need to go touch up, but we should be good after this as far as the skeleton bone areas go. Kind of forgot my hot glue gun was running. I just smelled it though. So we'll rebase him here in a second. I prefer to work with my bases without, or my miniature off the base, because it lets me have a little bit more freedom on the basing portion of the actual base. So I should say he's come loose from his handle, not his base. Problem is I'm afraid to try to pull him off because he's a little bit wet. There we go. Alright, we will... I was going to try to get him to stand up. And peel that hot glue off. Our current hot glue should be good and hot. That's what I use to attach my stuff to the base here. Not enough glue. Or it dried too quick, one of the two. Let that sit for a minute to cool. We're going to go for another coat of our oak brown on the hair. And that will probably be enough on that because we're going to lighten it up a lot. Sure to get all of his beard. I don't like putting eyebrows. I just tried on miniatures of this scale. They're really hard to do, so you can if you want. I don't. He'll get eyes though. One thing that did happen was when I was doing his hair is some of the skin got covered on accident. So we'll uncover it real quick. As well as we'll have to wait for that to dry, but there was a bit on his forehead that did the same thing. And then on his mouth, we had a bit get covered there as well. So alright, back into our stone golem. We're going to do our second coat here. If you're watching, I'd love for you to let me know. I enjoy chatting with my fans. I almost said customers, but most of you aren't customers of mine. I think I've painted for some of you that watch, though. If I have, I appreciate the business. I really enjoy painting for my customers and seeing their enjoyment when they get their miniatures. Maybe I'll do a video on my pricing structure and how I figure that out, because I'm generally cheaper than most other mini painters, but I'm not so cheap as to not make it worth my time. I should say inexpensive, not cheap. Cheap implies, I don't know, the word cheap for a lot of people thinks, when they hear cheap, they think low quality. And I haven't had any customers that were dissatisfied with their paint jobs. In fact, most of my customers are repeat customers. Or referrals from friends that have painted before. Alright. One thing I did miss is he's got a strap back here on the back of his leg that appears to be white. So, get that painted on. At least the ones on his arms are white, so we'll make them match. How's that sound? Same thing for the other leg. Okay. And then we need to get our second coat on the loose arm. The one that's not attached right now. And I think that'll be good for our stone golem color. You know? Because we're going to go over a lot of it with gray anyways. Our spaceship exterior and then white. So I think that will be sufficient. I'm just going to... There's a couple spots I realized I probably didn't get very well, like these tops of this knee pad. Same thing on this knee pad. Alright. So. And then the back of his hand somehow, I did that again. You know. Here's where we are so far. Alright, while we're waiting for those, can't do a saber. What we can do is his belt, though. So, on his belt, we're going to use oak brown, and then we'll highlight up to a leather brown color. Remember, thin coats. Thin coats are better than thick coats. If you gotta do 2 thin coats, I would prefer you do that. I'm sure you would prefer the outcome of the 2 thick coats as well. Or 2 thin coats instead of 1 thick coat. That's what I intended on saying. It's not what came out though. Ooh, should have waited a little bit longer. Some areas of that tunic aren't dry yet. They're bleeding in to our paint. So you gotta be careful of that when you're painting. We can fix it though. Alright, I'm gonna let him sit for just a moment, let some paint dry, just chat with you about different things that I've been working on. So, I think he's gonna look great facing off here against our Grievous once they're done. If you haven't seen, I did a video on this Grievous. Go back and check. I did not do a video on these guys, but I probably will in the future. These droids. Their Geonos is colored, so they're reddish brown. I've got a lot of stuff to paint. I've got a MDF building to build. I just got a lot. Got a lot on my plate lately. It's for the video giveaway. If you're watching this on the cutting mat giveaway, it'll probably run until the last video is going to air for it on the 20th. I'm not going to tell you exactly how to win in this stream, but the last portion that you need to watch in order to win will be on the 20th, and we'll announce the giveaway winner on the 27th. So you'll have 1 week to win from the time that the last portion of the video goes live. So little tidbit information there for those of you that would like to win. Alright, let's get back to it. Checking on a few things. Not sure what happened on the shoulder pad. We need to touch it up. It's a little wonky. Alright, so into our Spaceship Exterior. Just checking the thinness of the paint there. And we're going to go, make sure you thin this out on all the 90-degree and higher upturned surfaces. So if it's underneath, we're not going to touch it. But if it's perpendicular to the ground, we will. So it's going to be almost everything. Mostly everything. We will end up doing some select white highlighting. So like this whole shoulder pad's gonna get it. I know we covered it with stone golem, but that helps give us a nice base to work with. Okay. And then back piece. And when I'm doing the middle of the back piece, I'm not doing all the way out to the edges. I'm leaving some space for that line work to show. And then I'm trying not to get down in to the crevices. So, real gentle with your paints. Try to avoid any pooling. We're going to do the same thing on the front. If you'd think just joining us, thanks for stopping on by. Glad to have you. Drop a message in the chat, let me know you're here. Do the same thing here on our knee pads. And on the calves of the boots. Think of where light's going to hit when you're doing this. I've done this with a blue shades for the shadows. That's an option also. It works really well. If you scroll back on my Facebook page, you'll see some shots of Krennic that I painted, and I used blue in the shadows. So that's an option for you. I didn't do it on this guy, but you could, is what I'm saying. Make sure you're working with thin enough paints that you don't get weird pooling marks or anything. And the top of boots. And this Spaceship Exterior is likely to take a couple coats to cover. Take your time on the white parts. They're going to take extra work. Painting white is my least favorite thing to do. Here we are. Again, we're using Spaceship Exterior over Stone Golem right now. On any surface that is going to be lit. On the inside of this leg, I haven't painted any Spaceship Exterior. And this other shoulder pad is probably dry enough now. Same with this arm. So think of light theory, it really helps. If you've not, look up some ideas on it. Or some videos on it. I don't have any on my channel, unfortunately. Alright, let's go get our Saber Arm real fast. Our bent Saber Arm. Hey, Sareth. I'm not sure how... Everyone's saying they're having a hard time finding me on the stream, and I'm not sure what's going on. Like, it shows up on my YouTube page, and the link on my Facebook page is the right one. So, not quite sure about that. Not sure what's going on there. Alright, second coat of Spaceship Exterior. Pro tip, make sure your first layer is completely dry before you try to paint your second one. Otherwise you end up pulling paint off while you're working. And nobody likes pulling paint off their miniatures, and then you end up with weird markings. It's usually how you end up with brush strokes too. I'd love to see pictures of your Obi-Wan. Your Grievous looked great, man. Really liked it. Trying to show me up over there. Oh, boo. Gotta fix something now. Got some paint somewhere I didn't want it, but easily fixed. appreciate it, man. I was pretty humbled to see the army painter share my video on it. I was happy with how he turned out. Working on clone armor is my least favorite thing to do because it's just like stormtroopers, and I hate doing that too. It takes a lot of time to work on white. It's just white in general. I just don't like painting it. It's such a... I will do off-whites. I will do just about any color except pure white. Willingly. If you've been hanging out with us, you know that first part of how you win the cutting mat is going to be coming up here in just a little bit. If you have no idea what I'm talking about, jump on over and check out the giveaway video that's posted on the page. It will give you instructions on how to win one of these cutting mats from the Army Painter, self-healing cutting mats. I'm liking this one a lot, so you can own one for yourself if you would like, for totally free. Just $99 in shipping and handling. I'm kidding. Shipping's free too. Alright, let's get our Saber Arm again. And then I'm going to save any more highlighting on the armor until we're done with our wash. So our next step's going to be to go over our belt again. And we're going to have to save some of our cloak area where we painted over it when it wasn't quite dry yet. So I'll tell you, the first part to winning the cutting mat is you do have to be a subscriber of my YouTube channel. So if you're watching this and you'd like to win this, win yourself a cutting mat identical to the one that I'm using, make sure you're subscribed to the channel. Skeleton bone real quick. There's a couple spots I missed on his cloak. That is going to be a big blob of paint. That's not happening. Well, watery paint. Alright, that's got to dry a little bit more before we try to touch that up, so. Here's our Obi-Wan so far. Roughed in base coat colors. Saber that's crooked. We'll have to fix that. So I'm gonna go back into my Necromancer Cloak real quick. There's a couple spots I know I want to touch up. I've seen them while we're waiting. So, one of which is on the back of his knee here. I got quite a bit of white overshoot, so super carefully, without getting onto your white as much as possible, just touch that up right there. It doesn't have to be perfect. A wash will take care of a lot of it. Same thing in here. Something right here on his chest. And around the back of his neck I got some flesh tone. And up in the shoulder area I got some cloak color. Whatever color thing we're calling that. Alright. So while that's drying, I'm going to show you how I'm going to do this base real quick. The latex glove, because this basing paste is gritty and gross if you get it on your hands. It's really simple. I've got this basing compound that I use. Take a paint knife, scoop some of it out. If I recall, I mixed some rocks into this one because it's Geonosis, so there might be some rocks in there. I'm letting it do random stuff. Scrape it on. Try to scrape off any excess and smooth it out. And you can kind of move the rocks around in there. It acts like a glue and holds the rocks in there. And I've mixed in an orange colored paint that I think looked Geonosis-ish, and it looks very desert-like after a wash, so. Alright, that'll get tossed down in front of my fan under my desk, so it can dry. Put that away. I keep it in this little plastic container, and I made this a week ago and it's still good. So Jello shot containers works well. Alright, for our Saber Blade we're going to use Voidshield Blue as our base. I already got some on my palette from a previous project, and we'll get that painted on. We still need to base the actual saber proper. But that's a little easier to do once the saber blade itself is based. Alright. Set that somewhere where it can dry. Take a look at something real quick. Yeah, that's what I thought. We need to paint the saber itself black, but I have to wait for the saber blade to dry so that I can handle it by the blade. Let's see if this is dry enough up under here yet. Doesn't appear so. No, it's not, but we can make it work. Just going back and touching up the tunic where the belt kind of bled over. It happens from time to time. once he's fully dry, we'll give him a wash. But we can start with washing our skin tone. So, Army Painter Flesh Wash. You don't need much of it out of your bottle, because he doesn't have much flesh to be washed. Just his face. So get a little bit on your brush. Kind of go everywhere with it on his face. Don't forget his ears and his neck. Ears and neck. And one thing I did notice on his hairline, there's a small spot that is likely skin showing through in between the hair strands, so we're going to try to get some in there. And we'll be a little more careful with applying brown on it in a minute. Yeah. It's just like a stray strand that runs across his forehead, so don't want to forget that. Alright, we'll let that dry for a minute. For our black wash, we're going to do a little bit thin down black wash, dark wash. But we gotta wait for things to dry, because I would hate for it to pull color off or mix in inappropriately. But what we can do is pull his top off, set it aside, and we can wash the bottom of them. So, dark tone. Get a couple drops, 1, 2, 3, maybe 4 drops of water in there just to thin it out a little bit. I can't find my quick shade medium. You could mix a medium in there if you want. I don't tend to have issues with it flowing out, but it's an option. And we will brush all of our armor with it, and pants. You could come back and do a 1-to-1 wash for your pants if you want. That's up to you. Just a pure dark tone wash is what I was getting up there on the pants. So this will help blend some of your gradients that you've got going on. It helps hide imperfections. Use your washes if possible. Alright. We will put our Obi-Wan back together. But be smart with your washes and don't let them pool in areas that they shouldn't. So what I'm doing is I'm taking a damp brush and just taking some of the wash off in areas where I think that we're going to need some highlights in a bit, so makes it easier later. And then we're going to go back into that color, and we're going to start getting some of this upper part. So under the arms, make sure it doesn't pull out onto your tunic. It will if you put too much on there. On the chest piece. Don't forget to get up into the neck piece. So I'm going to paint that onto the shoulder pad, and then I'm going to come out and just, before it dries at all, I'm going to take some of it off the highest parts, just so it's easier to fix up later. Same thing on this side. What that does is shade the tone, gives it a little bit of the color of tone, and then, but it doesn't let it pool, so it's not super dark. And his cloak and belt and everything will get a soft tone wash. And hair. Oh, hair. Belt will get a soft tone wash. But we're not going to apply that wash until this black wash dries a little bit more. Because if we try to apply it now, it'll mix, and we don't want our colors to mix. We can do the hair, but not the rest of it. So, I'm going to paint our soft tone. Because the face is done. And what's this going to do for us is going to really make that hair brown. So it gives us a nice color to work up from. Make sure you don't miss anything when you're doing your washes. You'll hear me repeat that. If you miss an area, it stands out like a sore thumb. Because what you end up with is like a ring around the area that you missed. So make sure you cover everything. I'm going to go ahead and wash our belt because there's not any black around the belt, really. Most of it's starting to dry up anyways, so we'll probably go ahead and get our tunic as well. This is a pure dark tone wash. Oh, I missed our time. Alright, so first password for the cutting mat giveaway is Saber. S-A-B-E-R, Saber. So you'll need that. And the second password in order to enter next Tuesday. So, again, that password for the first part of the entry into the cutting mat giveaway is Saber. Just applying a soft tone wash to the tunic. Alright, we're going to let that Obi-Wan dry for a minute. What I'm going to do is go over to his Saber Arm. And we're going to paint this Saber black, and then we'll come back with some gunmetal in a bit. I know it needs to be a wash still, but we need to get our color on it first. Let that dry for a minute, and then we'll get some gunmetal and throw it on there. I don't like how this is pooling right on this one part of the tunic. So check for any odd pooling before it dries too much on your tunics. Any weird stuff that you're like, yeah, that's a little much, you can pull it out of there. But you gotta do it before it starts drying, otherwise you get, again, weird puddles. Alright. Our paint's almost dry over here. Just looking at Obi-Wan here and getting some ideas while it's drying of what needs to happen as far as painting. Normally I could start working on the face, which is the first highlight section I always do, but with his facial hair it makes it tough because it's still wet. So we gotta wash this arm. Let that dry. Make sure to clean off the top of his arm a little bit because that's going to be brighter. And wash the Saber Blade, or the Saber hilt now. And then we're going to come and do a somewhat dry brush technique to get some silver color onto it once it dries. So what I'm going to do is real quick, I'm going to throw Obi-Wan down in front of the fan, let him dry up, and I'm going to go grab some water, and I will be back in just a few moments. So enjoy looking at some photos that of stuff I've done. I'll be right back. Alright, I am back. Sorry about that. I just needed a quick break, get up, stretch, do all the things that I need to do as a painter. So, let's see where we're at Obi-Wan wise. Getting there. Getting there. It's still wet. That's why it's really shiny. So we'll have to wait just a couple more minutes before we can work on it. I'm actually not sure why it's so shiny. It's normally not that shiny, but whatevs. We'll work with what we got. We can start highlighting our whites though, because it's dry around all that. So, step one. We need to go back into our Spaceship Exterior. We're going to take this regiment brush that we've been using the whole time, and we're going to start highlighting up some of those higher areas. Make sure you thin this down real well. Alright, so top of arms, because it will help you be able to feather out some of that so it doesn't look like it's all of a sudden your highlighting ends. So, thin Spaceship Exterior paint. God bless America. I went down onto his cloak on accident. It's okay. We got it. Fixed. Make sure to try to leave some of those lines between your highlight and like the shadow lines along the armor. Make sure to pull your highlights up to where you want them to be the brightest. So usually assume you go down one direction and then pull it back up to the other. So that if I do have a little bit that pulls off my brush, it is at the highest point. I'm going to pull some paint out that got in the crack there. I'm going to go to our chest plate, do the same thing. Again, leaving some lines on our chest plate along the recesses. Yeah, I don't. My saber looks like it's gonna lean on his arm. I like I was talking about it earlier in the stream. The pose is very dynamic, but I'm not a gigantic fan of how he holds the saber. Real fine detail work here. So little bits at a time. Don't get too overly zealous. Take your time. Work with thin paints. White's a real easy color to muck up. And then it doesn't look great at all. We're going to get this whole outside of this leg with it. And then we're going to work our way, pull some highlights up from the back side of the leg too. Same thing in this little, he's got a little recess on the back of his leg. But we're going to try to leave some of that line work in there. Alright, let's do the same thing on the other leg. And try to leave our line work in there. Remember, pull your highlights up to the highest areas. I know I've mentioned that before, but I know I've mentioned that for recently, but I really want to emphasize that. Okay. And then Saber Arm. Alright, we are going to go into our matte white, which I don't use often. But we're probably going to do a 50-50 matte white to Spaceship Exterior color. My matte white's getting empty. So pull some of that here. Roughly 50-50. Might take a little bit more white than Spaceship Exterior because white's easy. White's a difficult color to get to lighten. And we're going to thin that out. Okay. And then we're going to go back over some of our highlights. Make sure my paint's the consistency I want it. Yep. Okay. A little bit more selective on our highlights with this one. Really focus on some of those upturned areas or the very edges of areas. this white highlighting will be some of the most time-consuming process on this guy. Just because you have to be so careful. Otherwise you get unnatural gradients. Some of it bled over. I don't want it there. So, fixed. We'll work on the other side while that dries before we try to highlight it anymore. Okay. Liking where it's at so far. Alright, onto our legs down here. So the tops of our calves are going to get this. The bottoms of the parts where they flare out on the boots are going to get that. They're going to get this color. The whole side of this leg will get that color because it's very upturned. Parts of the boot will get it. Very select parts. Saber Arm. Alright. We're going to take a lot more white, mix it into our color over here, and it's going to be almost pure white, so... And we're going to just do some simple extreme highlights on this. A lot of it's just going to be spots. Nothing too fancy.
What's that instrument you've got there? A trombone.
just about done with this part.
Can you boil a creeping at you, huh? Yummy.
Just some spot white on there. Try to pull it out of the crevice there so it doesn't mess it up because I boo-booed. Alright, and then under the Saber Arm, just a simple little thin line that goes up the center, dot on the back of the hand, and voila. Here's where our white looks, if I can get it in focus. It'll look better in the picture, I promise. Okay. We can work on our face now. So what I'm going to use for that is we're going to go back over with our base tone Army Painter Tan Flesh. Make sure your flesh tones are thinned, otherwise you get weird brush strokes. Not quite thin enough yet. It's picking up the paint underneath on the palette is the issue. There we go. Alright. I don't want quite that much loaded. So. Try to be careful not to go under the hair this way. And in fact, I may switch to a little bit smaller brush. I could paint the whole thing with the regiment brush if I wanted to really take some time. But we're going to go ahead and rinse this out. And I'm going to grab... I have an Army Painter character brush that I'm going to use. I've not used one of these before. So, we will see how it works. So we're going to cover most of his skin tone on the first highlight layer, leaving just some of the deepest recesses. And what I do immediately after this part, once that right around the eyes dries, is I go ahead and do the eyes. That way if I mess up, I can just touch over it with my base tone before I go any further. So, I haven't forgot about the eyes yet. I just usually do my first initial base tone first. Alright, for the eyes, I have this brush called the Psycho. I don't even know if you could see that, how fine that is. It's like 2 brush hairs, but that's what we're going to use. We're going to go into our Spaceship Exterior. And we will fill in the eyes. And if you go a little bit too large, that's okay. You can cover it with your base tone. Remember, that's why I said we do that secondary. And then we'll take our Psycho, and we'll go into a little bit, once it dries, of Necromancer Cloak. our pupil is going to be up and down line. Actually, this brush isn't quite enough paint to do the pupils, so we'll go back to this one. It's going to look a little bit large, I know, but we can make it work. Make sure you thin your paints enough, but not so much that they flow everywhere. Okay. And then we're going to go back into our base tone. We're going to touch up around the eyes to touch up any mistakes. Just be careful not to fill in your eyes totally. You don't want to lose your eyes. I don't know if you can see it on there, but he's got eyes. Make sure your eyes are somewhat straight so they don't end up crossed. Cross-eyed miniatures are easy to point out. Alright, we're going to go into about a 2-to-1 ratio of tan flesh to barbarian flesh. We're going to do a little bit smaller highlights. Focusing on a smaller area. Thinking about where the light would hit. So a lot on the forehead. Larger area on the forehead, under the cheek, or tops of the cheekbones. Over the eyes, like the eyebrow arches. Ears. And the part of the neck that is upturned. Ear on this side. Alright. And then we're going to go into a little bit more pure of the barbarian flesh. Even smaller area. We're not going to touch the lip anymore. On the cheekbone, it's just going to be a little small area. And then the last thing we're going to do is we will go into a little bit of elven flesh. Actually, no, we're not going to use the elven flesh. We're going to go take a little bit of our bone, skeleton bone, and mix that in with our tan flesh so it washes out just a touch. About a 3-to-1 ratio. Yep, that'll work. That's our white substitute there. And this is just going to be extreme skin highlighting. select spots under the eye and above the eye. And then I'm gonna try to, there's a spot on his forehead that I don't like the way it looks. But I'm gonna leave it alone because I'm happy with it. Even though it's not 100% how I want it to look. And then I'll take that skeleton bone color that I just mixed up, and I'll do some select ear highlighting. Alright. We need some leather brown. And I'm running out of leather brown too. Leather brown's going to be our highlight color for the hair. As well as the belt. So, we're going to pick out the strands of the hair with it as much as possible. Be very careful. Try not to get it into the cracks or the recesses on the hair because it won't look quite right. You'll lose some of that definition of color. And same thing on the mustache. We'll highlight the mustache with this. And the beard. Be light with your touch on the beard and try to paint in some like beard strokes. Some natural highlights in there. Alright, on to the hair. Again, like I said, trying to pick out some of the larger pieces of hair without getting too much in the recesses. And what you can do is you can turn your brush sideways and paint with the side of the barrel, and it really helps do some of that. And then over on the other side here, don't forget to paint this side of the facial hair, it's really easy to miss. And then I'm going to take just a touch of skeleton bone, and we're going to go into that leather, pull out some of that leather brown, and we'll do some very select hair highlighting with this, like top of this little crest of hair on the front, like along the part here. Top of the hair will probably get a bit more of it. Like the edge of the mustache, we'll get some of it. Not much. Just enough to make it look like there's some light glimmering off of it. Maybe pick out a couple select areas on the beard. Okay. Some of the larger highlight areas. Focus on that. All right. We're going to go into our Necromancer Cloak, and we're going to grab just a touch of the Spaceship Exterior, and we're going to grab out some of these highlights on the pants. Real quick, nothing super fancy. And then we'll go back and we'll do our highlights on the belt. Okay. Alright, belt highlights. Pure leather brown. There are some metal parts that apparently I missed, so I'll have to come back and get those. There's some metal. It's leather, so if your highlighting's not perfect, it just makes it look scratched. So as long as you don't have really bad imperfections. Okay. Alright, I'm gonna go ahead and pull down my gunmetal while I'm thinking about it. I'm trying to get every drop of paint out of this bottle before I discard it. So I'm bouncing it around quite a bit to get it out. Oh, I also need to highlight the back of his fingers. Forgot that. I'll grab just a touch more, and I'll really focus on the tops of the fingers. Okay. What was I doing? Gunmetal. So there's a couple places on his belt that are metallic. Trying to make sure you get those. There's a buckle. And if you paint a little onto the leather part, that's okay, because we'll just cover it up with leather in a second. And I assume this plate on the back is supposed to be metallic, so it's going to be on mine. Okay. And then on the saber, remember I said there's a couple areas that are going to be metallic around the saber hilt. Well, the saber guard around the top here is going to be metallic. And then around the base. There we go. Alright, into our skeleton bone for our tunic highlights. Really thin it down, remember. Don't cover up all your color that you've got. You want some of that color to stay. But also make sure your paint's thin enough that you can feather out some of those highlights. It's important. You may have to come back and do a couple coats of highlights, so it's okay. It's going to make it look more natural and better, and you'll have less brush strokes. This tunic has the opportunity to have lots of different variations and shades of tan in them, so take your time with it. Like I said, don't cover up all your pretty browns that you put built in with your wash. But some of these upturned ones, they're a little too dark and they need to go. Not all the way go, but they need to be filled in just a touch. We're getting there. We're getting there. We still have to finish our base up. It's not going to take a whole lot. It really just needs a wash once it's done drying. Think about where light would hit on the tunic and focus on those areas. And if you have a hard time figuring out where light would hit, just take your mini and hold them up to the light. Take a singular direction light, like a flashlight or something, and hold it over the mini where your light source would be coming from. It can help you figure that out. So, alright, we're going to go into our white color. We're going to pull a little bit over, probably about a 2-to-1 skeleton bone to white. And we're just going to pick out some of the extreme highlights here. Give some definition to this miniature, because we've painted some of it out. So, like the ridges on his cloak, and we're just getting the ridges. In the extreme upturned areas. So we've got to do this. We've got to finish his saber and do the highlights on his finger on the saber hand. Finish his base and we'll be just about wrapped up. Almost done with this color. Alright. Let's look at his Saber Arm. Let's get some highlights on there. Onto his hand. Grab some of our Necromancer Cloak, and it's not going to take a whole lot of highlighting. Some of our Spaceship Exterior, and we'll just do some extreme highlights. Okay. Alright, we've got to redo our blue on our saber, because it's gotten a little bit scraped up, but that's okay. While that's drying, I need to honestly hit him with a little bit of heat to try to get this saber bent up the way it goes. I'm just gonna hold it like this for a minute. Seems to have done the trick. We'll see. Maybe. Alright, so we're gonna take a little bit of our white gray mix. We're gonna pull over some of our blue. We're gonna lighten it a little bit. We're gonna do a little bit on the saber. I'm pulling a little bit more white. It takes more white to lighten stuff than you think it should, so don't be too conservative with it. You just keep adding white until you get a nice gradient of light blues running up your Saber Blade. It really makes it pop. So, alright, let's pull old Ben Kenobi apart. Get some glue on that. Oh, went a little overkill with the glue there. That works. And then see if we can get his arm on without messing up our Saber Blade. Okay. He's going to burn his hand off, apparently. That's just a thing. Pull his head off. Get some glue down in his neck. Put his head back on. Pull this other arm off. Should have enough residual glue around the tip to do that. I'm going to try to turn his arm down a little bit. Okay. Here's our finished Obi-Wan before basing. And I know it's going to be tough to get him in stream or in focus. And it doesn't look 100% perfect. but I promise in pictures it's going to look a lot better. So, all right, let's check on our base down here. We're still quite wet on our base. Basing may have to wait until tomorrow, but here's what our bases look like. We need to get him on there, onto his base. We'll do that. We will get him onto his base tonight. And then we'll wash the base tomorrow once it dries. Yes. Alright. I did that so I could get some pictures of him tonight. I will have pictures on the Facebook page here in a little bit. Keep in mind that secret password that I told you. It's not secret for just you, but make sure you keep that in mind, because that's going to be your first key into the cutting mat giveaway if you're interested for it. So that's going to wrap up tonight's stream. I appreciate y'all coming by. We painted an Obi-Wan in about 2 hours and 20 minutes from start to finish. I'll have pictures up on the page here in a moment, and thanks for stopping by. Have a good night. Show your appreciation by hitting the like button. You can subscribe by hitting the logo in the center of their screen to see all the new stuff as it comes out. Find me on social media at xxnerferderxx for Twitter, Facebook, Jagged Brush Studios. To see the next video, hit the video on the left. To see the newest upload, hit the video on the right. And I hope you enjoyed. Get out there and paint some more.